Okay, so tonight I'm doing something a little different. I'm out here with my friend Chris. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Where's he at? He's hiding. Whoa, 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 whoa. There he is. Um, he does Bigfoot investigation, and I have had my own experiences. I've heard things. You can go back and watch my video. I'll link that in the description. But we came down here tonight because there's actually been some really weird reports going on along the river down here. So we kind of came down lower than we expected to see anything. But we're going to work our way back up and stop a few places and go to where the reports have been coming from. And who knows, maybe we'll see something. If nothing else, it'll be fun just to get out of the house for a bit and do something different. Now, let's see if I can kind of show you where we're at. This is the Kern River. And it's pretty low right now. You could probably walk across the whole thing and barely get your knees wet.
We have almost a full moon.
Yeah, and it's almost a full moon.
The report we had come in from a whole family. Guy was swimming with his daughter and his wife last Monday night, 8 p.m., just upriver from here. He swam across the river. He heard a big, loud noise, commotion. It sounded like trees being busted. He thought maybe there was like a cow stuck in between some trees or something that had got tangled or something. But then he realized it was a little bit bigger and a little bit louder than normal. He hears his wife and his daughter scream, so he swims back across the river, sees them kind of pointing over to where the noise was coming from and basically telling him, let's go, we're out of here, let's leave, please. So we're up trying to see what we can see. This area has already had 2 reports where we're standing. One from a lady in the 1970s and one recently from a guy who was up here from Bakersfield doing some catfishing at this very spot, and he heard the loudest roar, scream, yell, and they seen some stuff, and they just they dropped and they had weapons, they had guns, they dropped their fishing gear and ran for dear life. And they were probably, he said, maybe driving like 70 miles an hour out of this canyon, which is very dangerous because it's a tight and windy road. And basically, he came back the next morning to get his fishing gear, runs into the ranger, asks the ranger, if they ever experience or see stuff like this. Ranger says yes, and unfortunately, this is where we seem to retrieve most of the dead bodies that go in this river, the people that go swimming. And me being an investigator trying to fill in the dots, because I was always wondering why that lady in the 70s said that they would be here. Because there's not a lot of cover, there's a few trees, but it's rolling bald hills for the most part right around on this side of the river. And I figured, when they said that they were retrieving most of the bodies over here, then I had to think, I bet a lot of animals wash up here that don't make it in the river. Cows that fall off the cliffs, deer that go over waterfalls and get pinned, and rabbits all the way down to mice all seem to probably float up in this one area. And I think these creatures know that if they linger around in the area long enough, they'll score a meal. And I think that maybe this is the reason why some of these bodies of these people that go in the current are never ever found. I'm not saying all of them or maybe even any of them, but I speculate there is a possibility that these things could be stealing some of these bodies, taking them to a more private location to consume at their leisure. So we're up here kind of seeing what we can see, and we'll get back.
And I can see that as a gold prospector. I know that this was one of the biggest areas where they found gold on this particular bend, this bar in the river.
Yeah.
That's why it's called Rich Bar.
Yeah.
And the way the river curves here, things tend to pile up. I don't know. It kind of widens out and spreads and has like an S curve to it. And so I can see how a lot of that stuff would show up here. And I can also see why the people left even with their guns, because when I heard what I heard, I was armed, and that didn't make any difference. When you hear that, until you've heard it, you can't understand. But when you hear that,
yeah, it doesn't sound like you're gonna really make a too much of an impact on one of these things.
I also had all 3 of my dogs, German Shorthair Pointers, and they were never afraid of anything their entire life, and they wanted nothing to do with the thing that I heard up near Mammoth a few years back.
They're trying to hide underneath you, weren't they?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, they wouldn't come out from under the blankets.
Yeah.
Even when I knocked on the wall and was like, "Who's there?" or said like "kitty kitty" or things that would normally trigger my dogs and get them to jump right up and start barking. That night, they were like, "No, we don't want none of this shit."
Jeez.
After they heard whatever it was, they were toast.
Well, that's what David Polide said was a red flag. And
I almost brought a dog with me tonight. I was thinking about bringing Buddy.
yeah, David Polide's, the guy from Missing 411, he
Yeah.
said that it was actually a major phenomenon when they were having these animals, people with their search and rescue dogs. They were at a summit in Lake Tahoe. It was the largest of its kind of search and rescue people, and he started going on to the phenomenon of these things, when these animals catch a scent of one of these things, it seems like they really behave oddly, or they hear them vocalize, they behave oddly. Basically, he says these animals live for the trail. Like, as soon as they get parked, they want to get out of that car and they want to run and hit the trail. And the thing is when they go in these areas where they speculate that maybe there was some kind of weird activity going on, and on their search and rescue, expedition, whatever they call them, that these dogs will sometimes they'll paw to get back into the cages, which is not like their character. And sometimes they'll circle around underneath their master, peeing on themselves. Many of the times, people that have dogs that normally would bark, like you said, and go out and want to get out and mess with whatever's out there, hide underneath their master's bed or their chair,
I've heard stories of dogs being found impaled 40 foot up into trees.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow something put them 40 foot up into a tree and impaled them on a branch.
Yeah.
I've also heard about some stories have even said that these things are able to communicate with coyotes and will keep them as like pets. And like manipulate entire packs of coyotes into like helping them hunt and do what they want. Yeah. Just like people do with dogs. So I'm going to stop this and try to take a photo.